guys, so what we want to jump into right now is the questions that you might be asked. This allows us to determine who you are as the borrower to make sure that we can perfectly align the deal that's right for you. One of the very first questions we might have is, what is your credit?
On the form, fill out if your credit's 600 or lower, 600 or higher. Ideally, we're looking for people with credit scores that are 600 or higher. Obviously, if your credit score is not 600, if there's something like a bankruptcy, a foreclosure in the background, we can obviously teach you how to raise that score. But for right now, for deals delivered, we need to see a 600 credit score or higher. Now, with that being said, if you don't have a 600 credit score, maybe your business partner does, or maybe a best friend, mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, someone you know that wants to invest with you. Whoever has 600 or higher, we need them on the application with you.
It's important that we have at least that 600. Once again, if it isn't you directly, that doesn't mean we can't make this work. It's find someone that you work closely with that we can.
But in the meantime, on the survey, put in your information, what your credit score is.
Next thing we want to talk about is cash. What kind of cash are you working with?
So again, ideally what we want to see is at least $40,000 in cash or more. Now that $40,000, again, just like credit, if you don't have it, who do you know that does have it? Who do you know who would be willing to invest with you? Again, you have the opportunity. We're bringing you deals delivered. You've got the deal, and we'll fund the deal. All you need is the cash for the down payment and closing costs. So we like to see 40 grand or more. That can be in your checking account, your savings account, it can be in your personal account, your business account. It can also be in retirement accounts, be in something like your SIDRA, your IRA, your 401k, your pension plan. It could also be on a line of credit, home equity line of credit. So wherever you can kind of drum up the cash, again, just fill out the survey, identify where you stand in that bucket, less than 40 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand or more.
Also, there is going to be a section down below that talks about comments. If you don't have that 40 grand yourself, but you are using a business partner that does have that cash, just go ahead and identify that in the quick comments section below. Next thing we want to talk about is gap. Now, maybe you don't have those funds, maybe you don't have available. Can we talk a little bit about what gap means and where we can find it?
So gap is basically the money, we're funding 80% of the acquisition, 100% of the rehab, or maybe 90% of the acquisition and 100% of the rehab. But the down payment and the closing costs, if you don't have them, have to come from a gap investor. So that gap investor could be someone you know. That gap investor could be a company. And essentially that gap investor might be a second mortgage on the property. But what's really important on these deals delivered is the transactions move really quick. So it's really important if you're using gap. So if you have a family member that's providing the gap, like for sure grandma's gonna write a check. So let us know that, put that in the gap figures in the survey. And to your point, maybe in the comment section as well, give us some clarification on that. But these deals move so fast that if you don't have your gap lined up right now, it's really imperative that you line up your gap, because we don't have time in a 10-day or 14-day escrow to go look for a possible gap lender. Keep in mind, one of the things you talked about earlier is they're going to sign a contract, but you also have a $5,000 earnest money deposit that's non-refundable. So if you flake, you lose $5 grand. So if you don't have that gap lined up, we don't want you losing your $5,000 earnest money deposit. So if you need gap, do a little homework on the gap, line them up. And again, there's the comment section. Let us know where the gap's coming from.
And I want to identify something really quickly. I want to make sure that there's a distinctive difference between actually having the cash and having gap, because there actually is. If you or your business partner have the cash, you're not necessarily needing someone to come in from an outside party to loan you the money. That's when we're talking about gap. If there's an increment of money that you're having to borrow from an outside party, that's usually when we're talking about gap, right there. That's kind of a loose term, but more to the point, when he's talking about identifying what kind of gap, whether you already have that lined up or whether you're still looking for that. That's going to be some of the drop-down options that you'll see. And make sure to comment in the section below where it has an opportunity to explain where you might be securing that financing.
Good point.
One of the last things that we're going to be asking as we wrapping up the survey is your experience. Really what we're looking for is, in the last 36 months, what is your experience? One of the few questions we have when we're going into these deals is, how much experience do you have as a flipper? And how much experience do you have as a person that owns a portfolio of rental properties? So as we go back 36 months in the past, if you've got experience, I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. You must be on title. Just because you've been a realtor, just because you've been a contractor and done a lot of deals, if you were never on title from a lending standpoint, you've never been a borrower, that means you don't have an experience as being a borrower from my point of view, right? So that's what we're talking about when we look at experience, is how many deals in the last 36 months were you actually on title for? Either you or one of your entities, right?
Right, good point.
Yeah.
So wholesaling, for example, usually when you're wholesaling, flipping, doing an assignment of contract, that doesn't count for experience. So some people get you're frustrated because, hey, I've wholesaled 20 deals. None of those deals were really your deals. So what we're looking for...
I'd like to add to that, though. What if you've done a double closing? Wouldn't I be on title for that?
If you did a double closing, you're on title, then it counts. So what we're looking for is in the last 36 months, how many homes have you flipped? Beyond 36 months, how many rental properties do you currently own? And I don't care if you've owned them for 15 years.
Right.
So how many have you flipped in the last 36 months? And how many rental properties do you currently own regardless of time?
All of the deals that we're bringing to you, one of the things that we find is the question that disqualifies people is, do you have any bankruptcies, foreclosures, lawsuits, or felonies? If you have any of those, that doesn't necessarily mean you're out, but it does mean that we need to get a little bit more information about that.
And let's be clear on felonies. So felonies, if you have...
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
I don't know. If you have... There was a helicopter flying around here a few minutes ago.
I don't have any felonies.
If you have mortgage fraud, insurance fraud, credit card fraud, bank fraud, anything with the word like fraud in it, especially mortgage fraud, we're not going to be the next sucker in line. So it really has to be far, far, far back in your history. Again, if there's something weird like that, for example, we've had clients where someone got in a fist fight or someone got busted for maybe as part of having marijuana or something like that. And that's a felony. Put that down in the comment section. We can work with that. But if you've got mortgage fraud, call someone else.
Yeah. Felonies out, pretty much, if you're going to run into one of those. But when we start talking about bankruptcies and foreclosures, there's a time lapse that we have. I think it's about 2 years. As long as it's prior to 2 years in the past of the date of the closing, then you should be good. So no big deal there. Make sure that, once again, if you do answer yes to any of those questions, just give us a clear explanation in the comment section.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather the core information to basically find out, if we can fund you, if you're going to be able to qualify. And on the surface, if we can't, then what do we need to do to help you qualify? Again, because on deals delivered, all our deals go rather quickly. I mean, they all sell within 30 minutes to maybe an hour, sometimes 2 hours. So what we want to be able to do is make sure that if you're serious, the next thing is, are you qualified?
Right.
And if you're not qualified, how can we help groom you, adjust you, modify your, your past, your current situation so that you do qualify?
We could get pretty creative.
Yeah. Private money lending.
So with that being said, guys, all you need to do from here is just enter your name, phone number, email. Make sure to fill out any of the comments that you think either qualify you for one of the questions that you need to explain further in detail above, or just something you might want to let us know about. Anything else you got for us?
Well, I look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, guys.